In the Impact segment tonight, a couple of years ago, a Massachusetts trooper pulled over a man who was driving erratically in the left lane and wouldn't turn over. The trooper found 2 pounds of cocaine in Andres Laura's car. The search was ruled legal, but Judge John McCann has now thrown the case out because he believed the trooper, Brendan Segru, was targeting minorities. To make matters worse, Laura even admitted he was going to sell the cocaine in Massachusetts. Joining us now from Boston is Michael Ehrlich, the defense attorney representing Laura. Here in the studio, Jim Walden, a former federal prosecutor with an expertise in narcotics prosecutions. What I can't understand reading this case, Mr. Walden, is I don't know what the law is, why the judge threw this case out. I mean, I understand racial profiling and people don't like it. If you're innocent, you can sue in a civil court. But what's the law here?
Well, you identified the right issue. The judge made the law. He used a highly unusual evidentiary theory to even let the evidence in. He cited cases from 1938 and 1944 as some justification for it. And then ultimately he said the statistics couldn't prove that the officer's conduct alone amounted to racial profiling, and then he only used the statistics anyway. This cop, by the way, was doing the right thing. He walked up to the car. He didn't search the car within the meaning of the Constitution. He simply looked in plain view and saw cocaine on the floor of the car. So your concern is right. There was no law that was violated here, and letting
All right, let's get to Mr. Ehrlich, who did very good work, Mr. Ehrlich. I'm very impressed with your defense of your client. I mean, I'm sorry that this happened. I think Laura should go to jail. But what you did was a very extensive research project, and you found out that the officer involved and the guy who backed up stopped more minorities, and you presented a very emotional case to the judge. I don't believe it's founded in law. I think the judge just bought the racial profiling aspect, and as Mr. Walden pointed out, made up the law. Where am I going wrong?
Well, you're going wrong on a couple of points. Number one, there was no emotion in it. The case that the former officer just talked about, he was a little bit off on the facts of the case relative to the actual stop and the sequence of events. Where he's going wrong is that we've got a Fourth Amendment issue in this state where the subjective intention of an officer plays no bearing on whether or not to pull over an individual based on race. And what I mean by that is an officer can have a race motive, but as long as the officer has a legitimate civil infraction, such as a minor motor vehicle infraction, speeding, or in my client's case, he traveled in the left lane too long, then the subjective motives of the officers don't come into play. That's where the Equal Protection Clause comes into play. The Equal Protection Clause takes a class of citizens who are protected under our law. Hispanics certainly would fall under that category. And when their protected status comes affront of what should be a neutral law, i.e. stopping motorists on the highway or pulling motorists over for offenses or searching minorities at a higher rate than whites, then I think that it's certainly not imaginary, and the judge
applied the right standard. Yeah, but that's insane. I mean, look, you know as well as I do, there's a corridor that goes through your area from New York to Massachusetts to Boston and Worcester, where narcotics are trafficked, inner-city narcotics. Now, this officer pulled this guy over. He saw the cocaine, as Mr. Walden pointed out. He then asked to search the trunk and found more than 2 pounds. Now, look. This judge is legislating from the bench. You know it and I know it. And you say you didn't use emotion. I don't know how you can say that, Counselor, because racial profiling is emotional and you know it.
Well, my argument to the court was not emotional, it was statistical. And if you want to put in the fact that there's an emotional aspect to the case, fine. But the numbers in my case,
that's what that judge
the numbers
bought.
Don't lie. The judge didn't buy it at all.
Look, the numbers don't lie, and you're right.
Well, if you could let me finish. The numbers say one thing. If you were looking at an individual who is traveling on the motorway, my research uncovered that there was a significant departure from searching white operators versus searching Hispanics and black operators.
You're doing the same thing you did with the judge, and we're in no spin zone here. The judge can be spun all day long. If your client were innocent, you could sue the Massachusetts State Police and you'd win. He's guilty. He admitted he's guilty. They got the stuff. You got him off on an emotional deal. Now, I'm going to let Mr. Walden reply to what you said, and then I'm going to give you the last word. Go ahead.
Using the statistics that he uses, I could convince you that I had a better shooting average than Michael Jordan. I mean, the point is that the statistics that the judge used were wrong. They were essentially voodoo economics reduced to legal theory. You are right. The Supreme Court has clearly said that this kind of evidence standing alone cannot be grounds to suppress evidence, and this case is totally at the heartlands, or out of the heartlands of every other opinion that the court talked about.
But Counselor Ehrlich, and he did a good job because he introduced the emotion into the case and the judge bought it. What he's saying is that his client, Laura, never would have been stopped if he weren't Hispanic. Now, I don't buy that because you can't see the guy's color at night. He didn't know it. He just was true. These guys know. Whoa, I'm going to give you the last word. But he's saying that this guy wouldn't have been stopped. And because he was stopped based on his race, being Hispanic, that the whole deal is illegal from the get-go. That's the argument.
But Laura was the passenger. The cop took the driver back to his squad car and was going to let Laura go. If he was going to search the car based on racial profiling, why didn't he search it then?
All right, let's let the counsel have the last word. Go ahead.
The officer positioned his vehicle in a turnaround area or a breakdown in a ramp leading from the Mass Pike to Route 290 in Worcester. And what that position did is it enabled that officer to catch the car coming through and be able to light with his headlights the occupants of the motor vehicle. So even though you're talking that it was at night, he had headlights on.
Ehrlich, with all due respect, I can, from right here watching you on television, you look Hispanic, okay? I don't know what you are. I'm not buying it. But we'll let the audience decide. Gentlemen, very interesting discussion.
Thank you.
And very disturbing, and they are going to appeal this, I hope, because the McCann ruling is nuts. In a moment on The Factor, a father loses his son to suicide. Now he's being prosecuted. Wait till you hear why. Also coming up, more disturbing evidence of some high school students in America completely out of control. We'll be right back as The Factor moves along all over the world.